two-time Emmy Award-winning producer, Frank Pace, and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor. Brought to you by We Can Coffee Company, manufacturer of freshly roasted premium coffee blends delivered directly to your door.
This week's guest, former Brewers CEO and MLB executive, Wendy and Laurel Prieb.
My brother
Frank, how are you today, pal? You looking good?
Well, I'm looking as good as I can.
Hey, look, you're vertical. You didn't read your name in the obits.
Yep.
You're shaved. That's the deal.
Yeah. Speaking of obits. What the fuck is Andrew Cuomo doing?
I know. What he's a real Egypt, isn't he? In Ireland, they call him an Egypt. What do they call him in Italy for Egypt? Oh, Mook.
Oh,
now I know, Mook.
Pretty funny. But speaking of a real Mook, why don't you put, Derek, why don't you put Andrew Cuomo's photo up? I mean, what is it with this guy?
I don't get any of these politicians with the can't keep it in their pants deal. But you know what? Listen to me. I mean, there's so many allegations against this guy. You know, there's no smoke without fire. I get it. The guy's probably guilty as hell. They all are. But they say power's the what was it? Kissinger said that, right? Power's the ultimate aphrodisiac.
Probably.
I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. Like some of the allegations, like he rubbed her back, he patted her on her spine. I mean,
some of those are innocent. But you know, he ran his hand up my breast. You know, if it was you, I could see it.
No, but I don't get it. Look, call a hooker for Christ's sake. I mean, if you're horny, get it done. It's like calling a plumber.
Well, how'd that work out for Elliot Spitzer?
Yeah, but when you do it, you don't put it all over social media. You know, like I don't get it. But they're all. I mean.
And his brother Chris is covered for him by not. I can't mention anything about my brother's.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I can't.
He's
watch
not
Chris
reporting
Cuomo.
anything on it.
He drives me crazy, Chris Cuomo. I can't watch him.
Yeah.
I just, you know, some people you just want to punch him in the face. They got that kind of face.
I thought he was the Fredo of the group, but maybe Andrew is.
You know, I actually met Mario. I didn't meet him, actually. I was sitting at a bar, again, I was at the airport, and I was with a buddy of mine, and we're sitting at a bar, and getting on first class was Mario Cuomo. Mm-hmm. And I saw him, he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I just gave him one of these. I went, and he went, and I went. And that was the extent of the whole deal.
Hey, but before we go on to bash Republican, I want to mention our guests today will be Laurel and Wendy Prieb, the first family of Major League Baseball. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I am too. You're stronger in baseball than I am. You know more about baseball than I do. I mean, you played baseball in college, right?
Sort of.
Well, that's further than I got. I got as far as high school, and that was it.
I pitched one inning. Gave up 4 runs in a 13-0 lead, and the coach yelled out, "Keep it up, Pace. You'll send them home happy yet."
I was worse than that. I remember I was so bad they put me in right field one time in high school, right? The high school game. And my father had come to see the game, and I hadn't played. It was the 9th inning. We were winning by like 8-0. And the guy put me out in right field, the coach, and I played one play. One batter got up and he took me out and he put somebody else in. So I got the nickname Teabag. I said, it's like I'm in and out here. What's the deal?
So, okay, I'm sorry.
No, I was terrible.
Can we get up our favorite punching bag, Donald Trump? Well, we're always an equal opportunity.
Well, this is the card.
Punching grad. But look at the card. Does the one on the upper right-hand corner remind you of anything like the Nazi Party?
Oh, you mean, yeah.
These are the official cards that Trump sent out.
But these look like credit cards, right?
Yeah.
And they're absolutely useless. They don't do anything.
Well, you know what's useless? Look at the lower one on the right. How do you spell official? O-F-F-I-C.
On your right, my left. Yeah, okay. He's missing the I in official, yeah.
He's missing a few eyes. A few eyes in the ears.
You know what this is to me? This is the version of the pet rock.
Yep. Yeah.
You're selling a pet rock here. This is what you're doing. And you know what?
Well, he's asking all of his supporters to vote on which one they want to be the official Trump card.
But you got to buy this, right?
I don't think so. I think you're going to get it, but I wouldn't be surprised if you buy it.
This reminds me of Menken's famous quote: "No one's ever gone broke underestimating the intelligence of the American public."
Absolutely, and Trump's making a fortune.
He's trying, well, you know what?
I mean, all the politicians are crazy. I mean,
It's both sides of the aisle. It's ridiculous, man. I remember reading, I guess, a couple of years ago, they were bashing some Democrat. He was talking about some island in one of the archipelagos. It might have been the Philippines. And he was talking about everybody lived in one side of the island. How come the island doesn't tip? And these are people that are literally ejected. What's her name? Babbitt? What'd you say her name was? Ashley Babbitt?
Ashley Babbitt.
Babbitt.
Right.
Babbitt. The chick doesn't even have a high school diploma. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. You know, like, the only thing you have to do in this country to get elected is be electable. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, Babbitt and Bobbitt.
Elena Babbitt. Now she's a. I have a personal
Vendetta.
vendetta against her. Yeah, I mean that's above and beyond.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure. Circumcision is one thing. By the way, circumcision. Ever tell the story?
By the way,
By the way, what is it? What do they call them? A
Moil.
moil. It was a moil, right?
Keep this clean because we got the Priebs coming
It's
on.
pretty clean.
Okay.
It's a moil, right? And he's 50. He was a moil for 50 years, and he finally retired. He brought it.
oh god,
He saved all the tips for the circumcision, right? And he wanted to have something special done with him, so he brought it to a leather goods store. And he came back a week later, and the guy had made all the tips into a wallet. And he says, 50 years. 50 years. I'm a moil. 50 years, and this is it? A wallet? The guy says, yeah, but if you rub it, it turns into a suitcase.
Oh, more witty banter from Billy O'Connor, my friends.
Oh, I don't do Jewish jokes too often.
Oh, that's crazy.
Anyway,
Can you get this down? I've looked enough at this, but that we remind me. Somebody said about politics, it's show business for ugly people.
I always heard it was the last refuge of a scoundrel. And it's both sides of the aisle. I mean, a lot of these guys are total idiots. I mean, it's incredible to me. How many congressmen are there? 435 congressmen?
I don't know.
100 senators?
You know that.
435 congressmen? I mean, it's some gig, man, they got.
Yeah.
They work half a year. God knows what kind of expense account they got. It's amazing. Both sides of the aisle.
It is both sides of the aisle.
Morons.
Can you put up the Weekend Coffee logo, Derek?
Yeah.
Because before we bring on this week's guests, we're pleased again to have our sponsor, Weekend Coffee Company. We're very enthused about this sponsor because they make great roasted blends, and by the way, it's delivered right to your door. So
I'll tell you what I like about them, Frank. They every 10 bags of coffee, they donate a bag to a first responder or to a military family, which is kind of cool for me, being, a Vietnam vet and a first responder myself. I think that's really nice to give something back,
Great.
and they do. So,
well, they're going to be giving a lot of coffee away on September 8th when we have Richie Pizzolato on.
Richie Pitch.
Richie Pitch. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Richie Pitch? Quickly.
I don't have any quick stories. Richie's worse than me, by the way. Richie was one of the guys that actually walked out of the Twin Towers, man. I mean, the building collapsed around him.
He was trapped for 4 hours.
Yeah, he was trapped for 4 hours.
Wow.
And
he'll be a great guest.
yeah, he wrote a book called Last Man Down, which was a testament to what he went through in the building. But battalion chief, good guy, known him for a while. But I'll tell you, we were on a sailboat trip, and this guy says, "This guy Picciano."
Here he goes. Here he goes.
Story. He says, "This guy Picciano." He said, "I know him for 30 years." He goes, "I never got a word out of him." He says, "Ever since 9/11," he goes, "He hasn't shut up."
Well,
I got a good T-shirt idea. Quick story with your face on it.
Yeah, quick story.
I was sitting in a bar.
Well, we're gonna have that'll be a great weekend. That'll be a great weekend to reminisce for you, and it'll be a great week for Weekend Coffee to donate some coffee to first responders.
It's always a tough day for us. Always a tough day for us. 9/11. It's always a hard day.
So with that, can we bring on Laurel and Wendy, Derek?
Yeah, we got them on.
Great.
Yes, we got them on.
So can we see them? Hey, there they are. Laurel and Wendy, how are you?
Good. Very well.
Great.
Very well. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. We're so glad to have you. And Wendy, if you could lean back, we can see your whole face. Oh no.
We'll just have to yeah, there you go.
That's good.
That's better.
Okay. So before we start, I want to ask you guys, what the hell's in the water in Milwaukee? The Brewers got a 7-game lead. The Bucks won the World Championship. The Pack looks like they got a real run at the title this year. Can you guys clue us in on what's going on in Milwaukee?
Secret sauce, Milwaukee.
I don't know if it's the water or the beer. I heard they like their beer in Milwaukee. It's quite a beer town. Blue collar town all the way, from what I understand.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's great. Great. So why don't you tell us how you guys got together?
Wendy, go ahead.
Okay, our stories, we both tell the story almost the same. So back in 1983 and 84, I was working in the Commissioner of Baseball's office in an executive training program. And as you know, Frank, Laurel was the All-Star Game coordinator for the Minnesota Twins game in 1985. Laurel was on what he calls, I think, a fact-finding mission and meeting with Don Marr and others within the commissioner's office. And a mutual friend of ours introduced us. And that was when we met, but we very loosely stayed in touch. I left the commissioner's office in 1985.
Was the Commissioner Peter Uberoth at that time?
Yeah, I was actually there, very interestingly, in the transition. So I was hired under Bowie and worked as a trainee for a brief period, and then Peter came on as commissioner. And then I left New York in the commissioner's office in 1985 and went to law school. And Laurel, of course, became traveling secretary for the Twins after. And we loosely stayed in touch then when he would come to Milwaukee or otherwise. And I'll fast forward to say that we started dating dated for a couple of years, always long distance. We never lived in the same city until we got married. And I tell everybody, I could be on my best behavior for long weekends, really attribute the fact that Laurel married me to the fact that he never had to see me over a more sustained period.
What changes in your story, Laurel?
No, I'll go with what Wendy said, because I've learned never to cross her and to change any of her versions. So it was really an exciting thing as Wendy and I grew closer just with the long distance dating. And it was after a game in May of 1990, I just happened to go in for a weekend. By that time, I was involved in the business of the Twins, not as traveling secretary. And it just struck me to say, what about us getting married and whatnot? And so, surprisingly to me, she said yes, and the rest is history. I do feel badly, though, that I look back and I never asked Wendy's dad if it was okay. And I suppose I've always felt guilty about that, but hopefully over 30 years, he's forgiven me.
And former commissioner of baseball, of course.
When the mutual friend introduced you, did he suspect there might be chemistry between you, or was it totally serendipitous?
No, it really was just, baseball is such really a small community, big business, but a small community. And, I was obviously young and just getting going. And this friend was, I think just introducing me to as many people as they could. And so, no, it was not like a setup or anything like that.
So Laura's background is the Twins, the Brewers, and the Major League Baseball. Wendy, of course, was the first CEO of the Milwaukee Brewers, first female CEO in baseball, correct?
Correct.
Why don't you both tell us what your most memorable moments are in baseball? Laurel, you go first.
Well, joining the Twins the Twins were the team I grew up with. And
you grew up in North Dakota?
South Dakota.
South Dakota,
So
same
it's
thing.
a common mistake. People often say North Dakota, but it's South Dakota. And so I grew up just loving the Twins, and for the opportunity to join that club at the time as an intern in public relations was really a thrill. And tying into your client, Mr. Carew, certainly from the time he joined the Twins in 1967, I was a big Rod Carew fan. And as luck would have it, I joined the Twins during his biggest year in 1977 when he was MVP and hit 388 and whatnot. And so that was a first big thrill. And as Wendy mentioned, we met as I was coordinator for the All-Star game. That was a big opportunity and a big thrill to be involved with Peter Ueberroth's first All-Star game. Coming to the Brewers, Miller Park, the construction of Miller Park was so very, very big. And being involved in that, all the politics of it and whatnot was, although painful at the time, so gratifying when it was finished. And still look back at that. And every day when we watch the Brewers on TV, certainly it's a thrill to look at Miller Park, now American Family Field, and know that we were so involved with that at the time. And lest I forget, of course, being the traveling secretary for the Twins in 1987 was probably the creme de la creme. The team I grew up with finally winning everything, and that was big. So that would sum it up for me, I think.
Great. Wendy?
So I think for me, I'm a lifelong baseball fan, but I joined the Brewers on February 12th of 1990 and was with the club for 15 years. And we had our ups and downs and trying days, but I will say this, 15 years, and I would not trade a day of it, including days that maybe I'd like to forget. So when I look at that, and Laurel alluded to the opening of Miller Park, of course, American Family Field now, but Miller Park in April of 2001, it really was the culmination of a 10-year mission to build a new ballpark theme in our community. And I hope that I never have taken for granted how special that day was. We had the then States, George Bush and Laura Bush there as guests, and it was just an absolutely emotional and thrilling moment. And to look at all the success that has happened for the Brewers since that day, nothing for me will ever probably supersede that opening of the ballpark.
Wow. Wow. I don't know if you can see the shirt that I got on, but in homage to both of your experiences with the Brewers, I wore this shirt.
Frank, not only could we see it, I noticed it before you even said anything.
Good.
I'm figuring,
Good choice.
I thought you wore that shirt every day.
Well, I do, but don't say anything. So, where would you fit in? Your family is very close with Hank Aaron. Where would you fit in Hank Aaron's return to Milwaukee, and how? Why don't you a little expand upon your family friendship with Hank Aaron? And I think Derek has a photo here also.
Great. So, absolutely. How fortunate are we on a personal level to be able to count Henry Aaron as a close friend. He's a legend, and everything he accomplished, not only within baseball, but for this country. And to be able to have had all the experiences that we have had with both Henry and his wife, Billy, is something that we truly cherish. And when I look back to when Hank joined the Brewers, it was 1975. I was 15, just to put it into some context. Wow. And it was so exciting for our community. The Brewers were an expansion team. They'd played their first year in Seattle as the Seattle Pilots. And my father often says, you know, he wanted a team in the worst way, and that was sort of what he got, because the team was not a competitive team. And the Braves, who had played there, of course, from 53 through 65, never had a losing season. Great teams led by, you know, Henry and Eddie Matthews. And really, when they departed, it broke the heart of Milwaukee and Wisconsin and baseball fans. And so when Henry came to Milwaukee in 1975, it brought an excitement, an electricity, and I'm going to say credibility that really took the Brewers to another level.
That's terrific. That's terrific. And he was such a
Nice man, wasn't he?
You know, the thing about there's so many things that you can say about Henry, but I think the thing that always struck me most was how humble he was. And whenever we'd see him, the first thing he would do, he'd ask about our daughter, Natalie. I mean, he just had such a huge heart for people, hence his Chasing the Dream Foundation and lifting others. I mean, that's really at his core who he was. So, you know, especially for people who don't know him, you see him as this larger than life figure and certainly an American icon. But if he was your friend and you knew him, he was humble. He was very interested in you and what was happening in your life. And that's really what made him so special. He never changed with all the success he had, all the honors he had. He was the same person.
Yeah, there's a picture of Hank with your dad in little bit later in life. He was a great guy, and he's got two pens in his hands, so I'm guessing he's prepared to sign autographs.
I'm guessing. And I will tell you, you know, as you well know, one of my father's absolute closest friends, and in fact, just recently, you know, I think it was at the All-Star game we were talking, because of course Billy was there, and they did a wonderful tribute to Henry at the All-Star game this year. And, you know, my father said, yeah, I still just, you know, I really miss him. You know, they talked really frequently on the phone and saw each other and just had such a special and long friendship.
Yeah. I'm guessing you also got to develop a pretty good relationship with Robin Yount, Hall of Famer.
Absolutely. And Robin will tell you what a huge influence Henry coming to the team in 1975 had on him and his development, not only as a player, but as a person. And Robin, of course, played his whole career for the Brewers. And I'll say, I used to sometimes joke, my father, of course, has 3 daughters, but I sometimes felt like there was a 4th child in the family, and it was Robin, because Robin and my father were always very, very close as well. And again, just sort of salt of the earth, played the game very much like Hank did, and that all he wanted to do was win. It wasn't about his own personal stats. It never was, even in his MVP season. And he wanted to win, and gave it his all every day, every at-bat, and just a role model for every Brewer who has followed.
We often play a game, This Week in History. So I'm going to ask Laurel exactly This Week in History, because today is it was a week ago today. But what do you think happened on August 4th, 1985, Laurel?
August 4th, 1985. Well, it might be something to do with Rodney shooting to left field, which he often did, of course, a single over the head of, I believe, Ron Washington, the shortstop.
Wow.
And dunking in for number 3,000 off of the great left-hander Frank Viola.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
And do you recall what else happened that day?
No, I'm a baseball guy. That's where I'm afraid you're about to embarrass me of something I ought to know.
Well, I would think you might know it. Tom Seaver also got his 300th win that day.
That is correct, and I guess there again, I'm Twins oriented, so
Yep.
I should pay attention to the rest of the game as well. But all attention on Twins and former Twins.
Don't worry about it, Laurel. He gets me all the time with this game. Bill, you know what happened in 1941 on December 11th? Give me a clue.
Well, Laurel does know more about Rod Carew than I do.
Wow, that's saying something.
He's incredible, and I'm thinking that we're talking about Robin and Rod. Didn't Rod make the final out in the 1983 fifth game, deciding fifth
82.
game? 82. And didn't he line out to Robin
He did.
at short?
He did in yes, in California, yes, or in
Milwaukee.
against the
Right. And again, I was representing Pony Shoes at that time when they were my client, and I had a lot of Angels under contract. And when we won the first two, when the Angels won the first two games, I had T-shirts printed up for them that said 1982 World Series and California Angels at that time. And I never got a chance to use them. They were I had to send them to Panama because the Brewers broke their heart winning 3 straight games to clinch the title.
I'm not going to say that we were sorry about that. And I believe at that time we were the first team to ever come back from being down 0-2. It's happened since, but I don't believe it had happened before that.
That team was
So
hard.
you put the kiss of death on them.
I think I did. I spoke too soon. That team was Harvey's Wallbangers, correct? Harvey Keene was the manager.
Wow.
And remember, Harvey Keene, now I don't know the answer to my own question, but was Harvey Keene, when he was a player, traded for Rocky Colavito?
That's very good. He was.
Wow, I thought of the answer while I was speaking the question. Harvey Keene was a player
and he was absolutely the right manager for that team and the right manager for Milwaukee. He just let them play. That was a really talented team. And I don't know if you remember, but actually Buck Rogers had started the season as the manager of the team, and the team was underperforming and made the change. And once they made the change, that was it. They took off.
I think Rocky Colavito was a Bronx boy. I think he came from my neck of the woods.
I think he was.
Yeah, I think he played good.
Good. The reigning home run champion for the reigning batting title.
Yep.
Yeah.
Things you remember from when you were a kid.
Well, you're hearing these names, Robin Yount and Colavito, Eddie Matthews, Henry Aaron. You get the old school class. You know what I mean? Just class, an old school work ethic,
Do you think the current players will have the same effect on the younger players that those players had on us?
I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say yes. I think the difference is we were young then. I think, you look at the influence, watch kids in ballparks, watch kids as they interact and engage in the game in ways different than we did. No question about that. But, you talk to kids, you ask them who their favorite player is, who their heroes are. And there are so many great young players in the game today. I think so. And I think one of the most special things about baseball is just that. The way it unites a community, the way it links generations, right? I became a fan because baseball was a big part of my family. In my case, people talk about the first time they went to a game. I don't remember. I was young. I don't remember not going to baseball games is really my answer. And so I do. I don't know, Laurel. What do you think?
I would agree with that. I think that certainly, as we all deal with the issue of when you get older, what's it feel like? And I think there's always a tendency to think what was good back in your day is the way it ought to be, because that's the way it was. And I think that's kind of a universal feeling, but the ability to stay contemporary, to really see things in in the day that you're living in is also important. And I would agree with Wen that I think that it's, although the trappings around kids growing up has certainly changed with online media and whatnot, but still, when they see those guys out on the field, on the green grass, and doing the amazing things they can do, there is a something that clicks in that will always encourage kids to want to be like those guys.
You know, you mentioned green grass. I don't think I've ever seen greener grass than the first time I was a kid that I walked through the stadium and I saw the green grass at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
I had never seen a color that bright, that vibrant. It was just.
Do you remember the date? Do you remember the date, Frank?
I do not remember the date. I remember I was probably 8 years old. I remember going to the Polo Grounds once when I was fortunate enough to, well, the Giants were still playing, and it got rained out. And I remember Alvin Dark hit 2 home runs in that game, and it got rained out in the 4th inning, so those 2 home runs didn't count. And I kept saying to my dad, "Can we go back? Can we go back? The sun's out now." But the game had already been canceled. But that's, you know.
I agree with Laurel. I think when you look back, when you're young, everything was better when you were younger, in your own mind. And you always remember the good times, Even when I was in Vietnam, I was always saying to myself, geez, I wish I was back in the neighborhood. I didn't think about the times I was having good times, but things change. And, we change with it, And I'm sure that I was going somewhere with this. I have no idea where I am.
You'll have to excuse that.
Frank, I wanted to share a fun little fact that I'm not sure if you know this about Laurel or not, but I'm going to share it here. Did you know that Laurel carries in his wallet the ticket stub from the ticket to the first game that he attended at the old Met Stadium? Wow. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I did not.
I don't have my wallet on me right now, but it was July 31st, 1965. Twins beat the Orioles 2-1 in 11. Not that it matters that much now, but I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Wow, that's incredible. Our mutual good friend Johnny Bench said to me one day, he said, sometimes the Hall of Fame doesn't feel as special to me anymore. And I just jumped on that and I said, why do you think that is, Johnny? I said, do you think that's because when you were inducted, Joe DiMaggio was there? You think because when you were inducted, Charlie Gehringer was there? You think because when you were inducted, Warren Spahn was there? All of those old great players. Now you go, you don't see those great players anymore. You don't realize that you're the great player. Rod's the great player. Willie's the great player. All sorts of great players are there. And because of that, and then Johnny said, you know what? I never thought of that. But, baseball continues to evolve.
That's a really good perspective, Frank. I would agree with that. Applies to a lot in our lives, of course. But to put it in that context for Hall of Famers, I think is pretty insightful.
Yep.
Well, you talk about in Lips about how proud you were when your dad was up at Cooperstown. When Rob was
yeah. My dad was a piano tutor in North White Plains, New York. And when Rod was inducted in '91, my dad was like a kid in a candy store running around at the Otisaka Hotel because, he had never, we would go to one baseball game a year. And he was running around taking Polaroids with Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio, Yogi Berra, Pee Wee Reese, and then going back and getting them signed. So that was Cooperstown, as you know better than I, Cooperstown is a very, very special place. And
you're so right, Frank. And I think it's one of those places, I guess none of us know if there is a baseball heaven and what it would be like. But I almost feel like when I'm in Cooperstown, we've been lucky enough to go for some of the ceremonies. And you just look around, right? You turn around and it's one Hall of Famer after another. And it's such a special experience. Everything about Cooperstown, certainly starting with the museum, and if you're fortunate enough to be there for the induction ceremonies, but the whole town. You referenced the Otis Saga, the fabulous, old resort, and you just sit and they have rocking chairs on the balcony, and you sit, and sometimes I'll think to myself, gosh, Joe DiMaggio probably sat in the same chair that I'm rocking in right now. And it's such a special place.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Billy, you got a couple questions?
Well, Wendy mentioned before about how Hank Aaron's very philanthropic. She's got quite a few philanthropic ventures yourself that you should be really proud of. I have two daughters and a granddaughter. Frank has a daughter and a granddaughter. And you're an advocate for women's rights. I've read that about you, which I think you must be. I want you to tell us something about that.
Yeah, so I am. When you have a little bit of success, you gain a voice, and you get to decide how you want to use your voice. And I was really lucky because I had a father who believed in me, and not just believed that I could be, an executive in baseball, but from the time that I was young, it never really occurred to me that because I was a woman that there'd be doors that wouldn't be open to me. And as I got older, of course, I started to see things that maybe I didn't understand, but I always knew that sometimes maybe more in me believed in myself. And everybody needs somebody to believe in them. And so there's a number of different and I'm involved with, but there's something I want to talk about that when I was with the Brewers that we started that I'm particularly proud of. And, you both mentioned that you have daughters and, girls like to play baseball or softball or fast pitch as well. And for me, it's not about, the best of the best will become Olympians and maybe get collegiate scholarships and all that. But I really like to focus in some ways the same way that Henry Aaron did on youth, because if you don't have the opportunities when you're young, they're not going to come to you as you progress. And so back in I guess it was right around 2000, a program called Girls of Summer. And it was at that time the first program that had been done through a major league team, Milwaukee, a public school system, in our case, of course, the Milwaukee system, and the Girl Scouts. And it was a great collaboration that I'm really proud to say continues to this day. And I remember we had the girls come out before that were selected to participate in this program. It was about a 6-week program. And it was not only to play, but also life skills. And so they came out and we introduced them and they lined up. And I walked down to shake each of their hands and say hello. Not a one of them, they didn't even in the eye, right? They were just painfully shy, very overwhelmed. 6 weeks later, we had them come back and recognize them. And these girls that were so shy that couldn't look me in the eye, now it's right before the pregame's going to start. And they're all saying to me, oh, we're so excited to be on this field. Can we?
Wow, isn't that great? Wow, that's terrific.
You just made me a believer in this program because that's what it was all about. And so it was experiences like that that really made me say, if you just impact one person, a few people, you have the ability to really do something. And all of us know what our passions are and where we can do that. And so you happen to hit mine. So mine is whether it's youth, whether it's other, I'm excited about every time a barrier is broken, I'm excited. Kim Ng becoming a general manager, Seattle Mariners just named president, that's starting, and so I love to see women not only in baseball, not only in sports, but any barrier seems insurmountable until it's broken. And so a lot of time, whether it's mentoring, whether it's being involved in other ways to help, particularly with women and young women.
Well, you blazed the trail, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Laurel, so now you're the Vice President of Special Operations for Major League Baseball. Why don't you tell us a little about that job?
Well, I was, but I can, I suppose, update you on that one because at the end of last year, there was an opportunity with a very nice retirement package that MLB put forward. And so I did accept that. And so I'm looking for my next assignment and waiting for you to call, Frank. Should there be some assistant type role, and whether it be driving you or whatever the case may be, I am waiting for that phone call. Hasn't come yet. I thought maybe this was a prelude to that. But on the heels of that, one opportunity to keep me with a lifeline back to MLB was, I should back up. One of the things I was doing the last few years was being an advisor to baseball's internal charity, the Baseball Assistance Team, acronym of BAT. And once I left, BAT was in touch asking me if I would be okay with joining the board of directors for BAT, which I gladly accepted. A terrific cause, certainly been around since it began under Peter Uberoth's administration. And we are in the business of really helping those in the baseball family with short-term help, giving out grants to people who have fallen down and up, and whether that be former big league players, former minor league players, front office, scouts, going way back. We've helped Negro League players and their wives or widows, gals in the All-American Girls Professional League. So it's been a very overreaching organization that has helped a lot of different folks and continues to in a big way. So it's great to be continuing to be part of that. But putting that aside, I still think I could fit in time to assist you, Frank, in any way you need.
I only haven't called because of COVID-related problems.
Well, Frank, as soon as you have that opportunity, I'm encouraging you.
Wendy needs me out of the place, so
Yeah.
let me know.
So BAT was started by Joe Garagiola, correct?
Joe was certainly among those prominent former players who approached Peter Uberoth to really advise him that there are a lot of players, prominent players, Hall of Fame players back in those days that had really fallen on hard times and needed help. So Joe was certainly one of the linchpins of getting this thing underway.
Yeah, because a lot of those players, unlike today when everybody signs for boatloads of money and everybody plays for boatloads of money, the majority of players, 95%, don't make that much. I mean, now they're making a major league minimum, which is terrific. But when Rod started '67, he made $9,000. He was Rookie of the Year, and then he got a raise to $10,000. So salaries were not what they were until what
Kurt Flood, maybe?
Yeah, Kurt Flood opened the doors to free agency. And then they started making a little bit more money. But some of those guys are really down on their luck, and I certainly honor you and value the work you did. And now Joe Garagiola's Jr. is sort of overseeing that, isn't he, for Major League Baseball?
No, Joe is with the Diamondbacks and has a role there. But here in New York, we have a terrific executive director. His name is Eric Nielsen. And I advised Eric and his staff under the auspices of the commissioner's office. And yet BAT is somewhat of its own separate entity, right, even though we have the ties to MLB. And then a terrific board of directors, including a number of former players, including guys like Sam McDowell, Steve Garvey, really people like that, Randy Wynn, really a wonderful guy. And we have about 18 members on the board. Adam Jones is on the board, even though he's still playing in Japan right now. So it's kind of we try to really diversify the board more and more and really get all aspects of the baseball family represented.
I'm telling you something now that I probably never told you before. But in 2001, you did a great Rod. Rod was with the Brewers, and we were going to go to Cooperstown from Milwaukee. So I flew into Milwaukee. was going to pick him up. We were going to fly from Milwaukee, Chicago to Syracuse and drive the rest of the way. And it would probably have been a 10-hour trip. Laurel and Wendy said, "Why don't you go with my dad?" So, and Rod said, "No, I don't want to ask Bud for any favors. He would probably say yes, but I don't want to impose on him." And I said, "Well," I said to you both, "that's not the end of the story. let me work on him." And after a little bit of time, I said, "Do you want to make a 10-hour trip? Do you want to go fly from Milwaukee to Chicago, Chicago to Syracuse, and then drive for an hour and a half?" "No, sir." So he said, "Okay." And we had the most delightful to Cooperstown in the commissioner's private plane.
Wow.
We talked to the commissioner, and that's where I laid the groundwork for Rod to become a consultant with Major League Baseball. So thank you both for that.
Yeah, things happen for a reason.
Yes, they do. How's Bud now? How is he?
In fact, he just had a birthday, turned 87, and he is doing well. He, of course, still watches many, many baseball games every day. And in addition, he, in his post-commissioner life, has really devoted himself to teaching. And so he teaches a class at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and he also teaches a class at ASU, and he does some lecturing. Marquette has a sports law program, and he loves doing it. As you know him. He has also a great storyteller, and his class focuses on baseball from 1945 through the present, and it deals with everything from the economics of the game, labor relations, and probably the thing that he's most passionate about, which is the social impact that this game has had worldwide. And as you know, my father believes very strongly in the social responsibility that goes along with the leadership of this game. So he loves teaching that class. He loves being engaged with the students. And I've actually had a chance. Ironically, I was flying from Phoenix to New York, I guess, one day. A young woman came up to me. She recognized me and she said, "I just have to introduce you. I'm in your, I know who you are, and I'm at ASU." And she told me how much she loves the class and how special it is for the students. So that's been really a wonderful thing. And I think it keeps my father engaged, and I am sure that those students keep him on his toes.
When he's still in Milwaukee, does he still go for his 2 hot dog lunch?
Only one hot dog, but a hot dog and a Diet Coke. That has not changed. He's there 6, usually 7 days a week still.
Wow.
So the name of the private,
crowd, I hope.
is Gillies.
It is Gillies.
Yes, Gillies, and it's going strong. If you get to Milwaukee, we highly recommend it, and recommend the hot dogs. And if you want to really splurge, they have the best frozen custard of anywhere.
That's great. 6 days a week.
It's fantastic.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Billy, you have any questions? Other questions?
No, not really. I sort of want to ask Lowell, when he was vice president of corporate affairs, was that more of a brick and mortar job, or more of a P&R job, or?
It was somewhat of a combination. I suppose you're referring back to my Arizona time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to the Arizona time was, it was a terrific 11-year period in which really tried to make the world smaller for the teams in the West, and did a combination of traveling around trying to touch as many people in those 10 West organizations as possible, held best business practice meetings for various disciplines within those clubs, be it the ticket people or the marketing group, stadium operations, the lawyers, whatever. And, I figured that the more that they can get together and talk about things with MLB tying it together, the better off we're going to be as they get to know each other. Certainly even in this day of emailing and great communications as we have, I've always been a believer in face-to-face communications as being a way to really get to know people a little bit better. And, it seemed to do well, and the clubs really embraced that well. So we did that for 10 or 11 years, and it was a wonderful time, and got me around to certainly see the clubs and at least give them a feeling that someone from MLB was there and interested in what they were doing.
And I'm going to just say, and I'm biased, but I know and have a lot of friends in baseball. And if you said to me, what's the most important part of all your baseball experiences? For me, it's my relationships. But I'm going to say this. I don't know anybody in this game who is as well liked and respected as Laurel, up and down, whether it's Central Baseball or the clubs, and whether it's players or front office or umpires. I am so proud of what he was able to do in that position. And I still have people who come up and talk to me about how they look forward to his visits and what they did. And so I think baseball was lucky to have him in that role too.
Yes,
they were lucky.
And I'm going to tell you one thing. Billy called me when he's doing his research. He said, "Let me ask you a question about this guy. Is he legit? Everybody loves him."
Yeah, actually, they kept popping up. Nicest man in baseball. Nicest guy in baseball. I said, "What? This guy's unbelievable. He's got no enemies. Unbelievable."
Okay, yeah, and okay, Bill. So let me tell you, I like to think I'm a nice person. People like me, but I am going to tell you something. When you are married to Laurel Prieb, you cannot, by comparison, you do not measure up. So that's you don't get into.
I don't know if any of that's true, but it gave me the opportunity to have dinner with Frank a couple times in Los Angeles. I still remember one night at the Palm Restaurant. I was so impressed that you were able to break away from your hectic schedule and come down and have dinner with me one free night there, and very memorable.
Well, you guys both came out. We visited the set when Natalie was real small of Suddenly Susan. And then we got together to reunite when I was in New York for Murphy Brown. So I value our friendship greatly. Let me ask you this. Since you're both away from the game now, what do you think about Major League Baseball incorporating the Negro League statistics into Major League Baseball?
Well, I'll jump in. I think it's great. I think it's complicated. At Elias, I have a very good friend who is really the lead guy. Name is John Lumbombarda.
Elias Sports Bureau.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, who is really the lead in trying to bring together and to make apples and apples out of all of this. Not the easiest thing to do, but I think it's wonderful. And when you take into account that you had all of these amazing individuals who were easily as talented as the best players in Major League Baseball at the time, but due to just the tragedy, and I will call it the tragic circumstances of the time, were never able to play Major League Baseball until Jackie Robinson came around in 1947, that to be able to bring them that added respect by incorporating their numbers into baseball's numbers is really good. But I will go back to also saying that it's not the easiest thing to do because, there's a lot of apples and oranges that you need to try and work out.
And I guess I would just add the perspective of, one of baseball's proudest moments is Jackie Robinson in 1947. And, now people, especially younger people, you have to remind them how important that was. The U.S. Army had not yet been integrated. Brown versus Board of Education had not yet happened. We were a very, very, very segregated country. And so I think anything that baseball can do that leads to both inclusion, but also telling the history, our history, the country's history, I think can only be a positive.
Well, you mentioned Jackie Robinson. I want to take a moment to mention Larry Doby, because Larry Doby was the second guy, and he was the first player in the American League, and he did the same thing Jackie Robinson did only 2 months later. And Larry Doby is almost forgotten in the history of baseball now, and I really think that baseball should retire Larry Doby's number, because they should give him. I mean, Buzz Aldrin was the second man on the moon. Larry Doby was the second man in baseball, and he integrated baseball and he integrated the American League. I think, if Jackie Robinson's number is retired, Larry Doby should be also. That's just my point of view.
Well, it's a good point of view. I mean,
Yeah, it's a fair point of view, and it's also a fair point of view to say that Jackie represented or represents, when we all talk about it, Larry, and you're right, the first Black players who played in our game, right? Because they all encountered the same things in their teams, in their spring training sites. And Larry Doby in particular, who is such a fine person as well. It's important that we don't lose that history.
Right. I remember, again, going back to my Twins roots, and as just having passed away a couple months ago, the great Jim Mudcat Grant, and it made an impression on me. I mean, here I am, 9 years old in 1965 when the Twins win the pennant, lost to the Dodgers 7 games. It still left a scar on me that I haven't quite been able to shake yet. But Mudcat Grant won 21 games that year, and it made such an impression on me. I mean, I grew up with blacks playing the game, of course, by the time I became aware of things. But that made an impression when it was noted that Mudcat, winning 20 games, was the first African American in history, in American League history, to win 20 games. And I said, really? Is that right? Of course, Don Newcomb had done that with the Dodgers for the National League years before, but Mudcat Grant was the first American leaguer, and it really hit me about, well, how could this be? And I guess since then, it certainly goes from there in terms of my acknowledgement of everything that happened.
Yeah, and I'm going to guess you might know this because I don't, but how many complete games do you think Mudcat had that year?
I'm guessing 15 or 16, something like that.
Yeah, probably. He was a workhorse, as all those players were back then. It makes me crazy when I see a pitcher come out now. One pitcher pitched the 7th, one pitcher pitched the 8th, and one pitcher pitched the 9th. But that's me being 71 years old, I guess, pining for the old days.
Right. So we're all dating ourselves a little bit, and I try to stay contemporary, but I will say this, like you, I go back to, the Brewers when really got good in the late 70s, early 80s, and I'd look at, whether it was Mike Caldwell or a Don Sutton, and all I know is when it was the 7th inning and they could smell a win, they got tougher in the 8th and 9th. They weren't coming out. But, of course, that was a different time. Was a different time.
When you talk about 82, I always lament the fact that the Angels picked up Tommy John instead of Don Sutton, because Don Sutton went through a part of putting them over the top.
You are right about that. He was a key down the stretch.
I got a question for all three of you, because obviously you guys know much more about baseball than I do. But I'm 73 years old. When I was a kid, I remember the biggest guy on the team was always a center fielder, batting fourth, in minor leagues. And I'm talking about pony leagues, high school ball. And then it seemed like now the biggest kid is the pitcher. Has it become more of a pitcher's game? Or, do they?
I'll let you guys answer that.
Yeah, I mean,
because
does it seem like the kids today, the bigger kid is the guy on the mound that becomes?
We got the question.
Oh man! Everybody looked at me with blank stares. I figured
we got the question.
Answer, because he'll have a more thoughtful answer. But I'm going to say it's right now. It's a power game. It's power pitchers against power hitters, right? Okay. And so every once in a while there are a few finesse pitchers, but not like there used to be. And look, that's just athletes are stronger. Their training is better. The equipment's better. And so I'm not sure, I think it depends team by team. I'm going to put in a plug for the Brewers because right now we love our starting pitching. We love our bullpen and we love our hitters and our fielders. So we think we've got it all.
I think it is true that I always like to say how kids playing baseball that you don't have to be 6'5" or weigh 280 pounds in order to play at a professional level. And thank goodness for guys like Jose Altuve, who is what he is, and one of the best players in Major League Baseball, who stands all of about 5'5", maybe on a good day. But it is true that certainly guys are bigger, stronger, faster, and I suppose that applies to pitchers as well. But remembering back in the day when shortstops were generally about 5'9" and weighed about 170 pounds, dripping wet, whereas now they're you look at guys like Correa, and over the years, I suppose Ripken really started it,
Cal Ripken,
being of a much bigger size and able to swing the bat far more. So, yeah, bigger, stronger, faster, power game is indeed the case. But I like to think things go in cycles, and that there will always be a place for kids who can make up for lack of size with other talents in this game.
Howard.
Yeah.
Of the Senators, Washington Senators, and then became the Dodgers. Now it seems like the Yankees' entire outfield has got guys as big or bigger than Frank Howard, and that includes a lot of pitchers also. Wendy mentions finesse pitchers. I'm going to ask Laurel a trick question. Does Laurel know who the toughest pitcher Rod Carew ever faced? He was a finesse pitcher.
You'd better fill me in. I've no doubt I've heard it, and but I can't remember that answer now.
Rudy May.
Oh my goodness gracious! He was a finesse guy, good left-hander too, and he wasn't only Rodney's toughest guy. It seems to me the entire Twins team could say that about Rudy May, because he had the Twins number.
Yeah, Rod caught up to him at the end of his career, though. He probably ended up hitting 290 or 300 against him for his career. But early on in his career, he was a 210, 220. But he did catch up to him.
All right. Well, sooner or later.
Any closing questions for Laurel and Wendy? Derek, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. I got one big question. So you guys have big network, a great connection with baseball, and a lot of experience, a lot of resources. Is there a project that you would love to do that maybe requires, sort of like Jeff Bezos and his spaceship? Is there some sort of project for you guys right now that you'd like to talk about, or that it's really difficult for you to get off the ground?
That's a great question, and I don't have anything, but there is, it's not a project, and I don't have a vision for it, but it's something that I see as an opportunity, and that is, and it goes back to something I said earlier, and that is, I'd like to see women's high school and collegiate softball, fastball programs continue to get more visibility, and of course then at the professional level too. And as more and more girls are playing, I think that there'll be more opportunities around that. So that's something that I don't, and again, I wished I had a clear vision for it at this point. I don't, but it sure is something that I would like to see happen.
Terrific. Billy?
I would second that for Wendy, is that she is such a wonderful advocate for women in sports generally, and for women, period, in whatever endeavor they're doing, as she has been a very diversified businesswoman away from baseball as well. But what she has to offer yet for the game of baseball, I think, is really significant, and I'd love to see that opportunity come forth more for her.
Well, I hope you two have an opportunity to write a book, experiences in baseball. You've done so much, and you each have been so influential over the course of the. I would pay to read that book for sure.
Well, we've been lucky to both do what we love, and we've been lucky at times to do it together, and always to support one another in it. So I'll say that I said early on that I was lucky to have my dad, who believed in me from the time I can remember. And as I then developed in my own career. My two biggest fans have always been my daughter Natalie and Laurel. Even when maybe I didn't deserve it, they were always behind me. So I really appreciate it. And as you guys know, you do things as a team. It's nobody does anything alone.
And we would be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to Miss Natalie Prieb, who's now working for The Hill in Washington, D.C. So I'm very proud of her. She's become a great young woman. I saw her in the press box at Milwaukee. She was going through and picking out desserts from the dessert tray.
That's exactly, boy, you got a good memory, Frank. You love to do that as a kid. Can I tell you one funny story? Do we have time?
Sure.
So, of course, we would have loved Natalie to grow up as a baseball fan, but your kids, as you know, you guys are parents, you got to let your kids find their own way in the world. And when we were in Milwaukee, of course, we were around the ballpark a lot, and she was very young, but we'd often have her come out for weekend day games. And so she spent a lot of time, or as much time as she could as a kid, around the ballpark, and she loved it. And you're exactly right. She liked to serve the dessert. She didn't know what was going on. She had her own little games, and sometimes concoctions. She'd mix a little Caesar salad with a little caramel apple, and she'd hand it to somebody. So, the creativity of a young person. And then we moved to Arizona when she was 7. And the next summer, we went to Milwaukee for about 2 weeks, and we saw a fair amount of games, not surprisingly. And so then we go back to Arizona, and I can still remember it. I'm driving down Camelback Road, for anybody who knows Arizona, a major thoroughfare. Natalie's in the back seat in her car. Mommy, I really miss Milwaukee. And I think that's odd, only because now we've lived in Arizona a year. She's got her friends. She likes her school and all that. So I said, really? I said, well, what do you miss most? And she said, well, I used to go to so many ball games there, and I don't go to as many games here. And that was like sticking heart. And I realized that Laurel and I, we went to a fair amount of games, but we also watched a lot of games on TV, right? Because we also wanted to watch Brewer games even when we were in Arizona. And I realized, an 8-year-old doesn't want to watch games on TV. They want to go to the ballpark. So the next year, we became season ticket holders for the first time, and went to as many games as we could and would bring friends. The one thing I wasn't successful at, I loved to keep score, especially as a kid. And I tried to get her to keep score. We bought her the cutest little scorebook and all, but I always ended up keeping score. But P.S., she's become a great fan, and even a bigger fan, actually, once she left us and she went to college, and a couple of her friends were big Cubs fans, so that was a great rivalry. And she's a great baseball fan today, and an aspiring young journalist as well.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing more of Miss Natalie Prieb, that's for sure. Anyway, thank you so much for being a
very gracious
part
to
of
come
the
on the
set.
show. Thank you so much. Pleasure to meet you.
Everything I promised you delivered.
Well, thank you, Frank. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Derek. And I really enjoyed this opportunity.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks, you guys.
Great.
A lot of great memories.
Continued success in everything you do.
To you too.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. See y'all.
So we've done
very interesting.
Yeah.
It really got me when they were talking about how baseball is like a window to history. Because I'm a history nut. And
Right.
you talk about Jackie Robinson, then you go back with Larry Doby, and I often think about the heavyweight champs of the world. About different ethnic people coming up in the early days. The Irish had a hard time coming to this country, and you had John L. Sullivan and Corbett and Fitzsimmons and the rest of them. And then after that, the Italians, Marciano and also the black experience, then later on the Latins. You could almost look a window of history through the heavyweight champions. You know? And baseball's the same kind of thing, which brings me to look at history with Lamar's Gamble.
Oh, yes. Why don't you...
Because this is a little window to history as well.
I see you've got a bookmark. Oddly enough, you got a bookmark from If These Lips Could Talk, which was our first book. But why don't you read us a segment from it? A brief segment.
Very brief.
A brief segment.
Brief, Frank. But you know what? Really, sports is a window to history, I think. And like we've often talked about, this merger couldn't have happened had it not been for the 60s and the time of the 60s. And
You lost your place?
No, I got it. I'm just trying to figure out a good lead into this, Frank, to make it as quick as possible.
Read it.
All right, so Namath is being introduced as the quarterback to the Jets in Toots Shores, which is a famous watering hole in New York. And the press is on him. And they say, Joe, you're portrayed as a ladies' man, a party animal. Can you sustain your Playboy image and still produce? I don't know why you reporters think that's such a big deal. Frankly, I think it's un-American not to have a few drinks and spend a little time with a lady. Besides, I only drink in two situations, Namath said. When I'm alone and when I'm in company. He says, come on, I'm no hypocrite. I don't hide anything. I like my women blonde and my Johnny Walker red. And that was Namath. That whole period of that time was a big influence for the merger. It couldn't have happened if it wasn't for the 60s.
And where can we buy that book?
You can buy this book on Acclaim, a Mook and a Mike website.
A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.com
Website. Acclaim.
Acclaim Press website.
Or on Amazon.
On Amazon.
Or wherever fine books are sold.
Yes, and if you buy it on Amazon, leave a review if you like the book. If you
And you will.
If you don't like the book,
nobody likes to blab about it. But you will like the book. It's a fine read, and we're both proud of it.
Great. What else we got to do today?
I don't know. You already hit Laurel with This Week in History, so you don't got to bury me. I love that. So what do you think happened in 1939, October 18th?
Well, let's give another shout out to our sponsor, Weekend Coffee.
We can indeed.
We can, and we will. We will for sure. And also Be Big Communications that are helping Weekend Coffee do their marketing. And
it's good stuff, Frank.
It is good stuff. And they can be found at BeBigCommunications.com as well. So thank you, Be Big. Thank you, Weekend Coffee. Thank you, our friends.
Thank you, Derek Harris.
Thank you, Derek Harris. We'll see you next week with our guest, Mr. Nelson. Rob Nelson, the creator of Big League. He'll be a fascinating guest.
He's going, and Big League Chew is going into the Hall of Fame.
I think they're already there.
Wow.
So
that'd be interesting. Guest,
so chew on that.
All right, brother.
All right. Be well, my friends.
Take care. Thank you for tuning in.
Next week's guest, entrepreneur, inventor of Big League Chew, and minor league pitcher, Rob Nelson.